Well, hello there. I don't mean to be looking down on you or anything. It's just the angle that my built-in webcam is sort of placed at right now. Anyway, the past year I've been learning so much about the wonderful healing properties that's found in the foods that grow right here on our own planet. And I'm going to talk about that for a couple minutes. Don't turn me off. This is an awesome video because it's my video. So it boils down to this. Of all the different learnings I've done, by the way, if you want sources cited, just let me know and I will send you to my favorite sources that I've been learning so much from. Most of all, I'm learning from the patterns that validate one side of the fence from the other. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? So anyway, what all this stuff boils down to with your health and the foods that you eat. If you eat nutrient deficient toxic food, you can't help but to occupy a body that's nutrient deficient and toxic. And on average, you will gain not only one, but more likely 2, 3, or 4 chronic diseases throughout your life that will kill you. On the flip side of that, if you consistently consume foods that are grown in nutrient-dense soil, free of the toxic chemicals that they spray on them, and grown organically, if you consume those kinds of foods consistently, then you're much more likely to live a wonderful, abundantly healthy life, where you're paying the farmers that are growing the greatest foods on earth rather than paying the hospitals because you feel like utter crap. That's what it boils down to. And there's foods where if you eat them, it's the dominant food you eat, you will turn on chronic disease like cancer and various vascular diseases and on and on and on. Then there are other foods where if you eat at least dominantly in your diet these other foods with the natural healing properties in them, you can turn off those kinds of cells that trigger chronic disease. You can even reverse cancer, heart disease, all of that stuff. There are people that have validated it within their own stories. I pay attention more so to patterns than I do science. I love science. There's certainly a need for it in the world, but you cannot be 100% science and zero faith and zero just, paying attention to patterns that validate one side of the fence from the other. There are people, more than one, quite a few, that have used natural therapies very successfully to completely reverse and cure themselves of cancers of all kinds, including stage 4 and all stages, and not just cancer, but just about any disease that's out there, any kind of chronic disease, including heart disease and diabetes type 2 and a whole host of others, leukemia, just goes on and on and on. Now, here's what it is about the soil that is sorely overlooked. I mean, it is just, it should be criminal. It's overlooked so much. The soil is our external metabolism. Everything that the soil grows, I shouldn't say that, but the foods that we eat, that the soils grow, the minerals in the soil, the soil has to be nutrient dense because the soil produces the foods that we eat if it's plant food. And the plant food obviously gives us our nutrients for our internal metabolism. So we are not disconnected from the soil by any means, but we treat the soil as though we are entirely disconnected from it and that like everything is going to be okay. It's not okay. We treat the soil like we are disconnected from it, and now most of us are dying of these terrible degenerative diseases and chronic illnesses of all kinds, and it's largely because of the soil. Dr. Linus Pauling, he can be quoted saying every ailment, every sickness, every disease can be traced back to a deficiency in the soil, a mineral deficiency in the soil. What we're doing nowadays with modern farming and factory farming techniques, which is almost all of our farming, we deplete the soil of their nutrients. The plants become so sick that they don't have any defenses. They actually need to be on life support via chemicals and other poisonous toxic sprays, which the chemical companies are more than happy to sell to farmers and poison them even more. And then we eat this stuff. Most of us, the bulk majority of our diet is poisonous, toxic, and nutrient deficient food. And that's why over 80% of us, more than 8 out of 10 people in the United States of America, including our children, die of something other than natural causes. They're dying of chronic disease brought on by lifestyle choices. So Now that I've painted a picture of death, doom, and gloom, I'm never going to keep us there. There's a way out of it. Call it real optimism. It's genuine, real optimism. So we're in a mess. We're in a big, fat, stinking mess that we shouldn't have even been in the first place. But we're here, so we got to deal with it. We can reverse these things, and here's how we do it. Government, industry, all that stuff. I really don't think they're suddenly going to change and start doing the right thing because they've had a change of heart. They follow money. So if the money changes, they change. Who spends the money? We do. What do we demand with our money right now? We demand toxic, poisonous, nutrient-depleted food. That's what we demand right now. Organic food. Food that's grown organically, but not just organic, because organic could also mean, neglected. And we don't want neglected crops. We want healthy or food that's grown organically in nutrient-dense soil, because the soil is our external metabolism, right? So the organic farmers, man, that's a tough life, at least monetarily. It is not more expensive to buy organic food. It is, for you and me to go to the grocery store, the organic stuff is a couple bucks more than the non-organic stuff, but it is not more money. Here's why. The organic farmers, they are not subsidized at all for their income. They have to pay fees on top of not being subsidized for what they do. They have to pay fees to be organic and to be able to label it and so on. And the farmers that are growing the nutrient-depleted toxic food, and if they grow enough corn and soybeans, the government will subsidize a huge chunk of their income. I've heard Michael Pollan say that those farmers will be subsidized. That is the U.S. taxpayer money. Your money, my money, will go to pay their income up to 40%. That is nearly half of their income. And they don't have to pay those other organic fees on top of that because they're not organic. So that's why that toxic food at the grocery store is, noticeably cheaper than the food that's grown organically. That's the only reason why. It's not that the cost is different. It's just the government policy is really effed up. Why are we spending our money to fund food that's killing us when there's this other food that could literally prevent and reverse these horrible, degenerative, chronic problems that we have? Why is money being shuttled over here, that same money, and just being reshuttled over here? Well, that's a whole other discussion that maybe I'll get into another day, and I think it has something to do with the powerful pharmaceutical lobbyists. There's a lot of money to be made in sickness. That's all I'll say about that for right now. So what we have to do, man, we just have to pony up and spend the money on the farmers who are growing the most amazing food on the planet. You're going to spend that money, okay? That money is either going to go to the farmers that are growing the most amazing food on the planet, or it's going to go to the hospitals. And you're going to know when it's time to shuttle your money to the hospitals, because you're going to feel like crap and you're going to have some problems, and then there goes the money to the hospitals. In fact, if you want to keep it on money, money isn't the most important. Your health should be. It baffles me that a lot of people don't think that way, but we'll roll with it here. Money. If you are opting to spend your money on the hospitals instead of the farmers that are growing the most amazing food on the earth, but you're going to go for the cheap toxic stuff, on average, you will spend in the 6 figures of your money on healthcare related costs. And you're going to feel like crap on top of that. And you're still going to be broke, which is the reason why you decided it would be a good idea to go for the cheap stuff, because you're broke. Well, guess what? Not only is your future going to be broke, but you're going to feel like crap, and you're going to shell out all that money. You're going to be forced to the hospitals. It's not a very self-interest decision to make. It's self-sabotaging. And then a lot of us have kids. And I know that we're not going to poison our kids on purpose, but whether it's on purpose or not on purpose, and I believe that, the overwhelming majority of you out there want to give your kids the best shot possible, but it doesn't change the fact that the largest spike in demand for casket makers right now are for short and wide caskets for kids, because they're dying of problems brought on by what they're eating every day. That's a fact, and it's a sad one. It's an inexcusable one. And maybe a lot of people out there just don't know these things, and maybe you just don't know what to do. Well, here's what you do. You reshuttle that money that's going to go out anyway and spend it on the best food on. It's even more important than exercise. What you put into your mouth fuels your exercise. It fuels everything that you do. So, diet is more important than exercise. You should get both in. But if we just change that one thing, how we eat, that's going to change everything else. We just got to pony up and do that. Now, there's some people who are so poor that they don't have the money to spend on the extra good food. So in a way, they're kind of trapped, but not really, because in America, you've got there's no law preventing anybody from making as much money as they want to make, point blank. So that's the really cool thing about living in America. But for right now, in this snapshot in time, if you just don't have the money, and even if you're going to engage on a process so that someday you will have the money to buy the better food, right now you just don't have it. That sucks. Okay, I feel you. That really flippin' sucks. I've been broke before and I hated it for many reasons. But what the rest of us can do, who's not in that kind of dire straits yet, is we can start spending our money on the better food because we can, because it's good for us and it's eventually going to be good for everybody, because government and industry follows money. Those subsidies, those massive subsidies that are going out to fund the cheap toxic food that's killing us, if enough people buy the good food that's grown organically, those subsidies are going to shift. And there's not a single lobbyist in Washington, no matter how powerful they are, that can stop that. They follow money, okay? Your money, my money, they follow how we spend our money. They're going to give us what we want, and we tell them what we want by how we spend our money. So get the better foods. It's going to be better for you. You're going to help out the poor people that maybe just don't have the option to get the better food right now because they're just so broke. It's going to help the entire country. That one thing alone, if we could cause a food revolution like that, to where the bulk of our food that we're growing and that we're eating is now this food with healing properties versus food with killing properties, if we can create that one revolution in our country, a food revolution, that's a revolution that would have a domino effect over every aspect of our lives and the wellness of our country, our economic back, our foreign trade policy. We're certainly going to feel better. Our dreams are going to come to life because we're finally going to have the energy to go out and get them. Wow. This would even create political change. It would change the political landscape, everything. And if we just had this food revolution. But it can't happen unless we start spending our dollars differently, and more people need to do it. It can't be the minority. It has to be the majority. So that's my call to action. Spend your money differently because industry is going to follow it. And when industry follows it, the poor people are going to have easier access to these foods so that they can get healthy, because most of the people that have these chronic diseases are people that live in poor, impoverished communities. That's another fact, and it's a sad one. But we can change all of that. So just get that domino effect going by changing the way that you spend your money. And let's really do this, man. Start putting more care, demand that we put more care into the soil, not depleting it of its nutrients and not spraying it with chemicals and other poisonous toxins, because the food is so weak, it's on life support, and it's a complete mess. Treat the soil like our external metabolism. Demand it with your money and how you spend it every single day. You vote once every 4 years for president, but you know what? The votes that's going to have a much greater impact on our lives is going to be the votes that we make every day with how we spend our money. Point blank. Let's get it done. Save our lives.